now with a couple of guests. David Coburn, who's a UKIP MEP, and David Jameson, political journalist at Common Space, join me on the line. Welcome, gentlemen. An issue that's close to both of your hearts, I am sure. I'd like to come to you first, David Coburn. I'll have to refer to surnames here just for clarity. Nicola Sturgeon pretty much said she's going to push the referendum button. Do you think it will take place, though? Because, of course, it needs approval, doesn't it, from the UK government?
Of course it does. And what she's trying to do is disrupt everything by trying to do it in the middle of negotiations. This is ridiculous. She's just trying to nobble, basically, the negotiations which have been decided on by the British people. She cannot get the word democracy into her head. And we were told that a referendum was a once-in-a-generational thing. We wouldn't have to go through this nonsense again. It's incredibly damaging for Scottish business and destroying Scottish jobs. But she doesn't care about that. She lives in fantasy land of Jacobites and Bonnie Prince Charlie and all that, and she doesn't really get it that what Scots really need are jobs, not independence. And she's not offering independence because what she's offering is rule from Brussels. Well, that's much better that we are ruled from Westminster and Edinburgh rather than Brussels and Frankfurt. I mean, is that really what she wants? And also the Scottish fishing grounds will be handed over to the European Union. That's what she's going to do. And that's going to destroy the Scottish fishing industry. It's a scandal. It's the second time in a generation that someone's given away our fishing grounds. First it was Ted Heath and Geoffrey Ribbon, and now it's the First Minister and her cohorts. Well, it's wrong.
OK, let's come across to David Jameson. Pretty obvious how the other David there feels about this. First of all, though, will they get the chance? What do you think Westminster will say about this? How will Theresa May respond?
Well, I think it would be a democratic outrage if Scotland didn't get the chance to hold a second referendum. I think on this front, the SNP absolutely have a democratic mandate. They had it in their manifesto ahead of the recent Scottish elections, and so I think they've absolutely got the democratic mandate. But I also agree with what Alex Salmon said about this, which is that the EU issue represents the mandate, but it's not the reason for a second independence referendum. The reasons for the second independence referendum are pretty much the same as the first. They're this: the UK is a dysfunctional state. It's increasingly becoming a one-party state. It has an incredibly dysfunctional economy, falling wages. Since 2007, wages have fallen by 10.4%. The NHS is being privatised. The welfare state is in a terrible state across the UK, and we have an opportunity to leave this failing UK. And I think that Scotland has a democratic right to take that choice.
But what about the fact, this is just staying with David Jameson, I just want to stay with David Jameson just for a second. What about the fact, as I understand, Nicola Sturgeon, which David Coburn pointed out, she said they were going to respect the result of that first referendum. So isn't she, as the other David just said, just exploiting the chaos post-Brexit?
No, I think this is a very Britain-centric fantasy that David Coburn is engaging in here. Nicola Sturgeon, I don't think, is trying to disrupt the Brexit process. I don't think that's her major play. I think that she feels she has a responsibility. She put it in her manifesto. She put that manifesto to the country, and the country voted for it in massive numbers. They voted in numbers that no UK, in terms of proportion of the Parliament, that no UK government has ever had. So I think that she feels she's representing a Scottish national interest in this. I think David Coburn's whole view of this, that this is fundamentally about Nicola Sturgeon trying to ruin Brexit, is absolutely false. This is about a whole plethora of issues, mainly to do with social justice across the whole UK, collapsing wages, an increasingly dysfunctional, sub-democratic, post-imperial state that Scottish people would do well to be shot of.
Good God. Go
ahead, you can respond. Feel free, David.
I have never had such a lot of nonsense in my life. Listen, we've got a 15 billion deficit. The European Union do not want us to come into the European Union on our own. I've spoken to President Schulz and others here. A 15 billion pound deficit is unacceptable. She would have to have absolutely savage cuts they'd force on her. Look what happened to Greece. She keeps talking about austerity.
We don't need to play by Westminster rules.
European Union. You know what? You know what happened to Greece?
We don't need to play by Westminster rules.
The European Union removed the legitimate government and ruled from Brussels, and that's what's going to happen to Scotland, because we are a worse state than Greece.
But we don't need to
and
be
the
part
Scottish
of that
National
game.
Party have destroyed the Scottish economy. They've destroyed the education system.
Rubbish.
And all they do is bleat on about this nonsense about nationalism. Well, it's not what people want in Scotland. You're going to destroy jobs. You're going to put people on the scrap heap. And I'll tell you something else. Newcastle will become New Edinburgh. All the business will be going there, and Scotland will be finished. It is absolute nonsense. These people are not Scottish nationalists. Well, I'm a Scottish patriot, which means I could never be a Scottish nationalist, because it's in Scotland's best interest to be part of a union that has been going for 400 years and more, and the best part of which is that we have fought together, we have worked together, and we will be better off together.
Can I just come across to David Jameson here?
Hang on. 4 times the trade is done with England and the rest of the UK than is done with the European Union.
David Jameson, I want to come and see you, please. David, isn't this a good point that David Coburn just made there? He says it's you know, you've worked together, you've fought together. Isn't it true that this is less about Scotland wanting to leave the UK and more about Scotland wanting to stay in the European Union?
No, I actually don't think that. I'm one of the 40% of yes voters from the first referendum who voted leave. So I don't think it is about that, and I think that Scots will return to the polls and vote as they did in the first referendum for a left-wing alternative to Westminster austerity. David Coburn is lying when he says, I don't care if you're a Scottish patriot.
You're going to have maximum austerity.
But you are a British nationalist. You are a British nationalist who doesn't care what damage is done by austerity to working class people all over the country, not just in Scotland. Austerity and the Tory government
working class
is wrecking
Scots
this
will
country.
lose
This
their jobs thanks to that woman.
Basket case Britain, and you are a spokesperson.
You're going to turn Scotland into a basket case,
disintegrating, sub-democratic,
4 times as much business is done with Great Britain than done with Europe.
Look at the state of this country, David. Look at the state of this country. Look at the state of this country. It's caused by the Scottish nationalists. You're going to lose Northern
Ireland. The rest of the UK is doing well. Scotland's not.
Scottish nationalists,
isn't it? Scotland's being ruined. Our education system is destroyed.
Britain is
our economy is 15 billion in the red. What operational
how
can you possibly say that?
David, is it my turn to speak or is it not?
How can you say that when the Scottish Nationals are given a 15
people
billion
in Scotland can
deficit?
See this.
OK, let me just bring another question to David Jameson here, because this is all about independence, isn't it, the SNP? Isn't this a big gamble from Nicola Sturgeon? What if she loses? What if the party loses? Is that the end of her political career, the end of the party?
I mean, it could well be the end of her career. I mean, I think this was an incredibly bold move by Nicola Sturgeon. I think she gambled here. I think she caught Theresa May very much on the wrong foot. Theresa May really looked terrified earlier today. She looked completely frightened by the prospect of a second independence referendum. I think she's played this very well, better, I have to admit, than I thought she would. I was worried that she would allow the UK government to take all the steps on this. I think she acted decisively. She acted aggressively, and that's politics, that's courage, that's you know, an historic move, I think, and one that's completely caught this Tory government off balance.
David Coburn, just listening to you two gents tonight, I suspect you'd probably get on very well down the pub if you didn't talk politics. Isn't this just a good example of what's happened in Scotland over the referendum? It's divided the country, and it could divide it even more fiercely this time round, especially if the UK government tries to delay this in some way. Is there a danger this could tear the country apart much worse this time?
It most certainly will tear the country apart, and its fishermen are going to lose their possibility of getting all their fishing grounds back. She wants that to be handled by Brussels. She's going to surrender our fishing grounds to Brussels, and probably the oil as well, because she'll do anything to stay in the European Union, because, quite frankly, she is an international socialist. That's what she is. And she is not a nationalist. She doesn't care about Scotland. And there are plenty of Scottish nationalists who voted for me and voted for Brexit because they don't want to be part of Europe. If they want to be independent, they want to be truly independent. She's not offering independence, she's offering a rule by Brussels, and that is bad, because at the moment we're a large country. Great Britain is one of the major players, but if Scotland's on its own, it is not a major player, and will be treated like Greece. Well, you just look at how many people.
Scotland
just
can't
look
be
at how
dragged
many
down with this
falling
mess.
apart. Scotland's falling apart thanks to her. Scotland is falling apart. The education system, which was the best
called
in the
UK
world,
austerity.
is now ruined. We have a 15 billion deficit. Answer that. What are we going to do about 15 billion deficit? You are out of it.
We don't need to play by Westminster's rules. We could have investment in public services. We could grow the economy. We could create employment. The sorts of things that the Westminster will never do. Westminster rules, we don't need to play by them.
You don't understand the basic economics, sir. It's Sturgeonomics, it's not economics.
I do understand. We can invest in our economy, we can have a proper
50% or more of the population disagree
not like
with
basket
you.
case Britain, which is based entirely on financial
You're
services.
going to end up, basket case Britain. We have low unemployment in Britain. They've got 25% in various other countries.
Massive
and in Spain,
semi-employed.
Almost 50% of people are
self-employment.
and I'll tell you something, the euro is about to collapse. What are you going to use as a currency? What are you going to use as a currency? Bobbies? Are you going to use
have an independent currency.
You know, buttons? What are you going to use as currency?
I'm absolutely loving it.
We talked about that the last time around,
simple.
and you couldn't have an answer for it then, and you won't have an answer for it now.
I think I need David Coburn to have a chance to catch his breath for a second. I think because you're turning a slight shade there. You're really giving it some gusto.
When I hear such nonsense,
you have a breather, David. I just want to come to David.
When I hear such nonsense, I love my country. I love Scotland, and I do not want to see it destroyed by a bunch of people who are completely unrealistic.
I want to come to David Jameson. Slight change of direction here. So, if Scotland does push for independence, you were listening to EU officials saying actually they're going to have to go to the back of the queue in terms of getting back into the European Union. Doesn't that worry you? Do you think that will scare off a lot of potential independence voters? And also, why would the EU be trying to scare Scotland off like that?
I think that we're in uncharted territory when it comes to the EU, to be frank. I think David Coburn will say, oh yes, you'll need to go to the end of the queue, you'll need to join the Euro, you'll need to join X, Y and Z. These are unprecedented times, not just for the UK. They're unprecedented times. They're unprecedented times not just for the UK, they're unprecedented times for the EU. I mean, I think the EU might have to change course if it even wants to survive, to be honest. I don't think it is itself in a terribly good shape, just as the UK is not in a terribly good shape.
But
I think that Scotland will be in a better position to relate to either institution when it's an independent country.
15
I don't
billion
think anyone
deficit.
can know at this point exactly how those negotiations will work. But I think all this, I mean, look, we had projects
austerity max is what you're
going to have it all again. With this crap about the Euro and all this nonsense, it's going to go on and on and on
15 billion
and on,
deficit thanks to the
legal sand in the eyes of all the voters. Much better just to vote for Scottish independence and then make our decisions ourselves.
David Jameson, do you think that Scotland can make a compelling case for the EU to allow it back in?
I'm sure it can. Scotland's one of the largest economies, you know, one of the most effective economies in the world. Of course it can. You know it can, David.
A 15 billion deficit, and you call that good? Come on, get real.
David Coburn, how would you feel about
all
that?
All countries run on a deficit.
If it was a successful independence vote, and obviously you're a UKIP representative, how would you feel about Scotland standing on its own out of the UK and out of Europe? What would that mean for Scotland?
A catastrophe. Scotland would go bust. We've got 15 billion pound deficit. How do you square that circle? We would not be allowed to join the euro. We won't be allowed to use the pound. We'd have no currency. Can you imagine what that's going to do for business between now and this decision is made? It's a catastrophe. At the moment, President Trump is offering us a free trade agreement with the United States. Well, that's what England's going to get. What's Scotland going to get?
Oh,
nothing.
that'll be fantastic. That's our NHS privatised.
Hopefully. Privatised.
Hopefully privatised.
You're talking nonsense, man. What we've got, you're destroying the NHS in Scotland. You're destroying everything that Scotland was good for, and now you've wrecked the economy, and you're going to do an awful lot worse. This Sturgeonomics rubbish is absolutely not realistic, and no one believes a word of it. And quite frankly,
I don't know what
tell you
I've
now,
done to Scotland.
Scottish people.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt you there, David.
Well, I'm a businessman.
Time, so
I'm in the business of making money, and I know something about how business runs. And business will run from Scotland.
So let me come to David Jameson. We're about to run out of time. David, final say for you. The polls suggest that actually the gap is narrowing. It'll be even tighter this time round. Why do you think that Scotland will actually get independence this time?
Because in the first independence referendum, we went from 26% to 45% with a strong, positive left-wing campaign. We're starting at 50% now, 50%, and with another strong, positive left-wing campaign that focuses on the benefits for working people, of making our own choices separate from Westminster, we can push far ahead. I'm confident we'll win the next referendum.
Go on, very quick response,
David. They're not going
to
make that decision. Those decisions are not going to be made by Holyrood. They're going to be made by Brussels. They are going to have no say in it whatsoever. And Britain has enough trouble as a whole trying to
would be better than Westminster.
Have its voice heard in Europe. When we're down to a very small Scottish state, we will be ignored and we will be run over by the European Union.
Better off without Westminster.
They will take over our government. They will take over our fish, and they will take over our oil. And we will be bust.
Gents, that's it for now. It's been a highly entertaining but also very informative debate. It's been a pleasure to have you both on RT International. Many thanks, guys. On the left of the screen, David Jameson, political journalist at Common Space, and on the right there with the last word, David Coburn, UKIP MEP. Thank you so much.